Clark Community College and about ready to transfer to SIUE of Edwardsville. And yeah, over the summer, my study was a mammal and game species response to aerial herbicide applications to control invasive bush honeysuckle. So, I am sure all of you at least heard of or know of bush honeysuckle, but for those who don't, it is an invasive species originating from Eastern Asia around the late 1800s. It is a dense woody shrub that is highly invasive to eastern North America. It was first introduced for erosion control in wildlife habitat, and it outcompetes native understory vegetation for essential nutrients. So the canopy is so thick that the sunlight has a very hard time getting through to the ground level forbs, grasses, and tree saplings. In the pictures to the right over there, that's actually from the same area, same spot. It's just different viewing angles. So those people in the bottom are actually in the picture at the top also. You just cannot see them because how dense the canopy is. And that is a map down there just showing the spread of the honeysuckle. Aerial herbicide applications. In 2014, the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, also known as IDNR, began using aerial spraying for type of management. The spray can be applied by helicopter or crop duster plane, but in our study sites, they're applied by helicopter. It is a way more efficient and economical type of management. There is less manpower used. You can cover a wider area quicker, better utilization of herbicide resources, and also better utilization of materials of herbicide. There's also some follow-up management that is recommended for after the spraying, like prescribed burns, and which is that picture over there, and also UTV and backpack spraying. And very few studies have, since this is a very new type of management, very few studies have assessed the response of mammals and game species in the aerial spraying management. My objectives of the study were to quantify the mammal and game species presence inhabiting aerial spray sites compared to the non-spray control sites. Also to inform partners of the impact of aerial herbicide spraying on wildlife and management decision-making for stakeholders. These stakeholders include private landowners that enroll their property into IRAP. IRAP is the Illinois Recreational Access Program. People can enroll their property in to get a full comprehensive forestry and habitat plan written. Then management teams will go in and assess the site and get an idea of what kind of management is needed for the site. And then in return, public access is allowed, but only a couple of days out of the year, provided by a landowner for hunting, fishing, hiking, etc. Actually, I want to go back. And that picture right there is some of IDNR's and NGRREC's Habitat Strike Team doing a prescribed burn, and that's actually me with a gyp torch right there. But areas of the study, we did Pierre Marquette, which is the big one in the bottom left corner, an IRAP property in Greene County, which is up top on the left, and then over in Carlinville, we did Beaver Dam State Park and another IRAP property, and then down by Lewis and Clark Community College. But due to time of the internship, we only analyzed the data from these two sites, the Greene County property and Pierre Marquette. Now, my main method of collecting data was doing motion camera traps. I deployed a camera trap at each collecting site, 6 non-spray and 6 control sites. And we placed the cameras 50 centimeters from the base of the tree, so about knee height. And the viewing angle was propped by a stick either on the top or bottom of the camera to just get a nice parallel view of the ground. And then also the cameras ran continuously 24/7 from the first week of June to the first week of July. And then there are also motion triggers, so anything that went past the viewing angle of the camera, it would just automatically take a picture. Then 3 pictures were taken within 0.6 seconds of that motion. Now this is just kind of a zoomed in aerial view of one of the IRAP property in Greene County. It's a little hard to tell, but there's 3 yellow transects, which are more involved in my co-interns project, Mackenzie and Emma. But we just work together to use a better use of our time. In the yellow are the sprayed sites, and then in the orange are the non-spray control sites. And these red X's mark plot center, and that is where I placed my camera. So these are just kind of a couple pictures to let you know what the spray sites versus control sites look like. So in the control site, you can see that the honeysuckle canopy is still very dense. And then over there in the spray site, that the leaves from the honeysuckle have kind of all not really grown back fully, and you can show that little skeleton type from the honeysuckle. And then that picture right there in the bottom is just kind of like some dwarfism of the new leaf growth from the next year, because this aerial spraying was done in 2020. And there was actually in these properties no follow-up management was done, so that's kind of why some of these honeysuckle are trying just their hardest to grow back. Also want to point out that there is a lot of variation along the spray sites, that some honeysuckle took more to the management to the spraying than others. So there's some areas there was thicker canopy still after the spraying, but some others there was almost completely zero canopy. Now this is just kind of how my vegetation data was done. So right there in the middle of the pen is the camera deployment site, and then those red lines going in each cardinal direction are just kind of 50-meter marks. And at the end of it, these white squares represent a 6.4 meter squared plot where I did the vegetation survey. And then within that, in the northeast corner of the plot, I did a basal area factor of 10. That's kind of, I estimate the basal area and the timber stand per acre. And then also did the canopy cover. In the northwest corner, I did a 1 meter square quadrant to assess more of the microhabitat in each vegetation site. And also fully plot vegetation coverage, so like forbs, bare ground, leaf litter, tree saplings, woody stems. Also did an overstory and understory stem count, and then percent bush honeysuckle cover and the number of live stems greater than 1 centimeter. So right there, that picture is a pair of calipers set at 1 centimeter. And any honeysuckle stem that had some live leaf growth on it was greater than 1 centimeter, counted as a live stem, and anything in between that centimeter did not count as a live stem. Now for my results. These are just showing the site characteristics. So this is the mean overstory stems, understory stems, and canopy cover. As you can tell from the graphs that they are pretty similar throughout. This is just kind of showing that the spraying didn't really affect these variables here, so that we can say that we can really kind of depict that the animals weren't responding to these variables within the site, that we can more focus on the mammals and game species response to the aerial spraying of honeysuckle. So this is the total mean bush honeysuckle coverage across the study sites. As you can tell in the control sites, there is about 2 times greater cover of honeysuckle than the spray sites, but the p-value is still making it not significant. And then here are the mammal and game species captured on the camera traps. Throughout the 12 cameras where vegetation surveys were done, I collected 10,038 camera back pictures. And about the species we collected were squirrel species. So when the cameras were black and white, the pictures were black and white, I can't really depict between fox and gray squirrel, so we kind of just organized them in one category. Then we did the eastern chipmunk, raccoon, Virginia possum, bobcat, coyote, white-tailed deer, and wild turkey, which for some reason the turkey did not save on that. So this is also total mean species richness across the study sites. We are not expecting it, but still very interesting that the mean is exactly the same across the 2 sites. But this is pretty much due to the sample size being very small, since we only had the cameras out for a month, which we ideally want them out for a whole year. And now this is the species richness to percent honeysuckle across the study sites. So this graph is just showing a slightly downward trend. As the bush honeysuckle coverage increases, the species richness across the sites does decrease a little bit, but still not a significant data set, and we would need a greater sample size to get some more conclusive results. And this is just kind of a visual graph showing the ubiquitousness of the sites. See, as you can tell, most of the mammals on each site, or control and spray sites, were the same presences. Besides, in the yellow there is a Virginia possum, which is just kind of interesting to see. There's only 3 presences in the control and 6 in the sprayed. And the bobcat, which was a very scarce to get a picture of, there's 0 in the control and 1 presence in the sprayed. For future directions, more data collected on the microhabitat in the area would be ideal to get a better assessment of the honeysuckle versus the mammals in the area, and then assess the variables driving mammal and game species to the habitat, so like where is the nearest water and food source. And longer deployment trials of the camera traps continuous through each season, so pretty much a whole year to get a greater sample size and a better assessment on it. And also reduce the amount of false triggers. And false triggers are just pictures of the cameras that had no animals in it. So it's due to this vegetation movement, so clearing more vegetation. And maybe facing the cameras mostly south, because facing the cameras in a west to east direction, the sun rays would glare onto the lens and just automatically make a false trigger. Now, conclusions, there is a decreased amount of bush honeysuckle coverage, showing that the aerial spraying did have a great effect on the honeysuckle. And there was a downward trend of species richness to higher bush honeysuckle coverage. And there the presence of mammals game species was the same between the control sites, but longer investment of the study was needed. Now here are my acknowledgments. And then here are just a couple of cool things throughout the study. That picture right there is an albino fawn that we caught, which is really cool to see there. And then to the right is me, my advisor Justin, and I walked up onto a timber rattlesnake doing some field research at Pierre Marquette. It was about 4 feet long, which is really cool to see such a rare species in that area, about 30 minutes down the road. And I am open for questions. Yep.
Did any of the game species caught on the camera in the sprayed area have any visible health defects that could be associated with the spray, or was everything fine?
Didn't really notice any visual health effects. Mostly the deer would just mosey around and be like 90 frames of the pictures. So literally, it was pretty much similar throughout each site. Yep.
So it didn't seem like structurally the forest was hugely different, sprayed versus unsprayed.
So that's also due. So honeysuckle, the reason why it's such a problem too, is it's the first thing to leaf out, and so it just has that opportunity to steal all the nutrients from all the other vegetation. It's also the last thing to go lose its leaves. So and that's that last, when it loses leaves in the fall, that's the target to hit it, so the spraying doesn't really affect any of the other vegetation.
So how long was it sprayed before you went in there?
A year. Yeah, it was sprayed in 2020. Yep.
What happens to all the other plants that are still green at that time of year, like ferns and mosses and things, when you spray?
We didn't really go into depth about that, but when we did the vegetation surveys, we did kind of estimate the forbs to the grasses, and they were pretty similar throughout the sites too, though. But we didn't go into much detail about that one.
So on that map you first showed about the distribution, I've noticed do you know why Illinois and Indiana were so high?
So the temperate climate around here is ideal for the honeysuckle to grow and just massively invade. But also, so it showed Missouri being so close to us in only a few spots. I estimate that there's just been a lot of just not people saying that it's there, so not many just descriptions of it.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure I've seen it in my county before,
yeah,
and it wasn't lit up.
Exactly. So just people not saying that it's there, pretty much.
I think I've read a paper before about honeysuckle dropping leaves in local little creeks and rivers, and it affecting the macroinvertebrates because of some sort of chemical that it had in the leaves. Do herbivores eat, do the deer or anything eat honeysuckle, or are they all kind of avoiding it?
So the deer, the deer love it, honestly, for the cover it has and the bedding, but in the long run, it's just not the best for them, due to what it does to the other native vegetation. And bird species will eat the berries it produces and everything like that. And honestly, in the winter time, when there's no vegetation to eat, deer will try to start eating sticks just for some nutrients and stuff like that. So I do expect them to eat it, honestly.
I just wanted to know, in the areas that you were looking at, do they also burn there ever, or no?
Yeah, they do. A lot of burns are done, but so in the IRAP property in Greene County, there was no prescribed burn done, and that's what had a lot of that dwarfism leaf of the new growth. Yeah.
Dr. Danielle Hake wants to know, because you had over 10,000 photos, about how many had animals, and she's curious about the false trigger rate.
So I would say that over 2/3 of the photos were false triggers, and that's why emphasizing that facing it towards the south, less sun glare, and more vegetation cleared. Yeah.
Are there comparative data for sites that have not been impacted by honeysuckle at all, or is that just impossible to find around here?
That's pretty much impossible to find around here, definitely. I'd be really cool and interested to see that comparison though. Any other questions?
Nicole Morris says, awesome job, Jacob.
Yes.
Why is anything 1 centimeter or smaller not considered a live stem?
So we looked at some papers, and one paper showing the effect just doing honeysuckle after aerial spraying. That's what the method they used, was just using the 1 centimeter. Alrighty, I'll leave it up to Mackenzie next.